What's up, guys? Welcome back to Let's Talk Music. Yeah, today we're gonna listen to "Sign of Things to Come" by Sylosis. I've been really into these guys lately. They're just fucking awesome. They're guitarist and singer Josh Middleton. He played with Architects for a couple years, so I think they maybe got a little bit of popularity because of that. But anyway, yeah. So this is their 6th studio album, and it was released September 8th, 2023 through Nuclear Blast. Nuclear. That's one of those words that's so hard to say. Blast Records. And it was the last one to feature Alex Bailey, and he just left maybe a month ago. So a rhythm guitarist. So as far as I know, I think I'm pretty sure they got their old rhythm guitarist back because they're on tour right now.
It's one of those bands too where before I had listened to them, I had no idea they were British. I mean, I've heard them before, but when you listen to singing and stuff, it's all like death grunts and stuff.
And then when you know his name is Middleton, you're like, yeah, I can't really get much more British than that.
Right.
Yeah, it was kind of cool that the album cover is just all black and they've made the vinyl white.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Yeah, the album sleeve artwork is pretty cool too. It looks like it's like a human spine.
It's a snake.
Itself. Oh, it's a snake spine.
It's a snake eating its own tail.
That makes sense. Yeah. Like one of the songs that we're going to hear later, Judas, they kind of make reference to the serpent a lot in there. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like real simplistic covers like that. It just kind of makes a profound statement without having to put too much on there.
Yeah. I like contrast things. Like I like how like I said, the whole album, the cover's all black and then they made the vinyl white.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of cool to open it up and like, oh, that's fucking crazy. Because you always expect it to just be black.
Right.
I was kind of bummed. I ordered their album that came out before this, and they pressed it on purple vinyl for like a limited run or something like that. And there was a couple available, but they were just like the cost of it was so much more than just the black one, if you could find any.
Right.
So I ended up just getting it in black, but whatever. I was like, it'd been cool if it's just different. I don't think I have any purple records.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty uncommon. It was really cool listening to this album because the rhythms are incredibly tight, like unbelievable on the rhythm guitar. We were talking a little bit ago before the So you're not the only one.
A little bit of boot.
Yeah, we were talking.
We're not Canadian, I promise.
Right, no, but we were talking about the how the recording goes sometimes, and it's possible Josh is just doing it all himself.
I'm pretty sure he is.
Right, and then if that's the case, I mean, your own nuance as a musician, so you have that much higher of a chance of getting it that tight, as opposed to having several different guys recording it in the studio session.
Yeah, and I did a little bit of, quite a bit. I've been kind of researching them a lot lately. I've really been into Sylosis lately, so forgive me for being a fanboy right now. But he has a signature LTD, ESP LTD, but his is an LTD. I was watching an interview and talking about it, and then somebody asked, like, are you planning on releasing an ESP? And he was like, not really, because he's like, there's nothing wrong with this. I mean, it's still, for an LTD, it's a little pricey. I think it's like $1,500 or something like that, but it's a super, it's loaded. Like it's, and then a lot of people were pissed because he made it a bolt-on neck, which some people consider that like low end, but he was like, well, I did that for a reason. He's like, personally to him, he feels like you get more snap.
I can see that.
Yeah, out of a bolt-on. But anyway, it's LTD. I think it's like an M, like their super strat shape.
Oh, okay. And so then kind of like Kirk Hammett's.
Yeah, it looks kind of like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it has Fishman's. I think it has stainless steel frets, but he uses that, and he uses 5150s, and variants and mesas. So that's how he gets that super tight tone. Those Fishmans, I'm not usually a huge fan of Fishmans, but they do give you a really tight tone.
Right.
And if you want a modern metal tone, that's how you get it now.
Right. And I was going to say, too, it seems like that's really in vogue right now, going Fishman pickups.
Yeah, it was like EMG's 15 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. It just seems like it's like saturated the market, kind of like how EMG's did not too long ago. But I don't know. For me, I mean, I think it's just a matter of preference. I don't really think it matters in between passive and active pickups like that.
No, I mean, active pickups just give you more output.
Right.
That's really it. As far as tone goes, it's subjective.
Right. Because, I mean, I have both. I mean, personally, I don't... The only difference I can really tell, and it might just be in my mind, when I'm playing on the guitar I have with EMGs, it's a little bit muddier, and I have to EQ it just a little different. But when I'm playing on some of the passive pickups that I have, it's a lot more crisp. So I really don't know if that's the case or if that's just the way that it is with those pickups. But
it could be. There's just so much more output.
Right. So, I mean...
I've always kind of had the opposite, though, with 8185s, is I've always had... It seems to me that EMG 8185s are, like, a little bit more crisp. But they always seem, like, ear-piercing to me. That's why...
Right.
I don't know. I tried them for a little while, but every time I pick them up or pick up a guitar with 8185s, I don't know. It works for some people, but I don't know.
I mean, it's good for tonal. That's kind of why I don't mind having them, because it's good for tonal variety. But at the same time, I mean, my preference, I like passive pickups more.
Yeah.
I just enjoy them in the way they sound more. I think they're a lot more dynamic sounding.
I like the kind of variance in this album.
Oh yeah.
As far as like feel, because like the first one it's not like super thrash. It's heavy and it is fast, but then there's this one that it comes in and it's just real groove.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot Pantera-ish.
Yep, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff in this album where it's like they
Black Sabbath-ish.
Oh yeah, they really kind of slow it down in tempo a lot, especially in comparison with their earlier albums. But also just the dynamic of his voice. Like he'll go from clean vocals to heavy shouted vocals a lot.
Yeah.
I like how he doesn't play the leads and the solos in every single song and overdo it.
It's so good. For a while, when I always thought it sounds like he says ripping ass right there. Because it just cuts out and he says it begins.
Yep.
But it really sounded like yeah, it was really funny. But yeah, and I like how dynamic his screams are.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool. I love that. But it reminds me of like Chester Bennington in a way, because like he always had like that really high pitched scream, but he had like he would pitch it. You know what I mean? Like he would almost like he was half screaming, half singing. Yeah, he does that a lot too.
If you can match the pitch with a scream like that, all more power to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, also just the way it works. I mean, usually I'm not a big fan of that style of singing in heavy music, but in this band it works really well. I think it's just the overall tonality of the instruments in comparison to what he does with the screams.
Yeah, he's got a really good scream, and his singing voice is okay. I don't hate it.
No, I mean,
it leaves something to be desired, I think, but you know, he's not. It's not like it's bad.
No,
he's still not putting like auto-tune and shit on.
No, I've listened to Genesis. That's bad singing.
Only you make these fucking comparisons. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, but I've watched a few of their live videos and they sound like exactly the same live. It's really good. Ugh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to see them. It's gonna be fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, they seem like they're gonna put on a good show because I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's got a lot of energy to it. Like, it's a certain different kind of energy to this band that a lot of the similar ones don't have, and that's kind of why I really enjoy listening to them.
I was watching an interview and he said that he doesn't like the term metalcore for their music. He's like I get the term metalcore, but he's like, so, and then the guy was like, well, what do you consider your genre? He's like, metal.
Well, yeah, I would agree, because he does cross genres a lot on here. Well, subgenres, I should say.
Yeah,
it's still metal, but
you can hear a lot, especially on this album and their last one. You can hear a lot of thrash. You can hear a lot of just like sludgy kind of, Black Sabbath kind of sounding metal. You can hear a lot of Pantera. Like I said, in their earlier stuff, you can hear some Slayer. In there, and
I just found it really interesting too when I heard their first album that it's in standard tuning. Like you do not hear that often anymore, and especially in as heavy as this music is. That
was another thing that he said, and I think it was the same interview. He said that that was the first and maybe the only album. I know he said it was the first album that they played in standard, and they used to play lower tunings before that. And then
cool.
They just kept going up higher and higher and higher, and then they're like, "Fuck it, let's do this. It's a thrash album. Let's do it in standard." But I mean, thrash sounds great in standard.
I think so, but I also think, drop C sharp sounds great for thrash too. It just has those overtones that you get in that low of a tuning. It sounds great.
And if I remember right, I can't remember if it was this album or the one before. I think it was the album before that. They were tuned to G sharp standard.
Oh, geez.
So that's low. That's like I tuned to drop C sharp, so that would be what CGC. So it would be basically tuned down to like 7-string on a 6-string and a half step lower.
I mean, it's almost like yes, I do make these weird comparisons, but it's almost like what Soundgarden did on Bad Motorfinger. They would tune the low string way the hell down, and then leave the rest in like some weird combination of standard and drop.
Theirs was standard, but it was just tuned down a lot. So it was, G sharp.
I mean, it's just fucked up. I mean, that's
wild.
how
I have my bass tuned right now. I have my bass tuned like it's a 7 or like it's 5-string, but that was kind of on accident. My bass is kind of a cheap piece of shit, and the neck I couldn't get it to go back far enough.
Oh, okay.
So I had to do it that way. The strings I got were too heavy for that neck,
makes sense.
so I couldn't get the truss rod to move the other way anymore. Yeah. So I had to do it that way to be able to play, and record. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is too. I mean, because my 5-strings it's the same thing. It's a Squier, but it's a 5-string jazz bass. It is kind of nice having it, but I do find myself using that 5-string way too much.
It's nice. It's nice. Like if you want to like play something in drop tunings or whatever, then it's nice to have that option. You don't have to do anything with the bass. You just play it on the 3rd fret on the 5th string.
I use the bass in a unique way where it fills out the bottom part harmonically of some of the passages that you just don't have access to on a 6-string guitar. So it just kind of extends the chords a little bit in a unique way. So
I like how this kind of turned into us just talking while listening to music.
Right.
It's kind of cool.
Well, I mean...
And it's kind of funny because like some people have gone so far to say like, oh, you should talk about this on your podcast.
Right.
Well, we didn't do a podcast intentionally. It just kind of ended up that way. But it's cool,
Well, I mean, let's be real. I mean, the first... I would say dozen or so videos we did, we've kind of said the same stuff about the bands over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in my mind, it's like, we could talk about musically and sonically what's going on in the band and everything, but I mean, we kind of covered that already, and we're not going to beat it to death. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the only thing that I've come to realize is that we don't really disagree on a lot. Like maybe we pick albums that are a little bit neutral, but the only thing that I feel we've disagreed on was like I don't care for progressive music as much,
which that's fine.
And it's not even like I don't like it,
Right. I would say at least in the past 20 years or so, our musical tastes have evolved
and they've crisscrossed
a lot. Because I know probably like right around the time we both were really heavy into music, I was more into like the lighter kind of 80s kind of stuff, and I think you were kind of still in like the punk rock and stuff like that.
When was this?
I would say probably like mid 2000s. Well, you were starting to get into metalcore and stuff like that.
Because early 2000s I was in middle school, and that's when I was really heavy into like Metallica and stuff like that, and then that kind of carried into like my freshman year of high school, and then after I started learning like what emo is I wouldn't really say I got into emo music necessarily, but I got more into like metalcore, and I got into like Chiodos when they came out, and this stuff didn't really hit me until later. And I got into Sevenfold when I was the summer after my freshman year, and I think that's kind of what did it for me.
Oh yeah,
like for me that was my gateway band into this kind of stuff. And I heard City of Evil first.
Yeah, and that was a good album. I mean, back then I probably wouldn't have admitted it, but in retrospect, I mean, it was for the time and everything, and what it did for that band. It was a great album, and it was kind of a breath of fresh air to hear it, because that kind of music was gone for so long. I was just real melodic, hard rock, heavy metal.
My friend Justin, he kind of got me listening to some shit, because he was like the first kid that I hung out with that was like an emo kid, if you want to call it that. But Ozfest did it for me, because there was a lot of shit that I'd never even heard of. Is like real popular now, and
because remember that's kind of where you got into like
Atreyu. That's where I got into. Well, I was into System of a Down before that.
Oh yeah, because you guys went to go see them.
Because System of a Down was headlining. Atreyu, Sevenfold, Lamb of God was there. But I really got into Sevenfold because they did a cover of Walk. And it was funny because like at that time, I didn't even really care for Pantera. I just knew them and I knew that song. And then
right.
So they played that, and then when I saw Sinister Gates come out and he used to do that guitar solo back then, and I was like, oh my god, these guys are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And I still, to this day, I've never really cared for Matt's voice after their second album.
Yeah, because I mean, he
just sounded too much like Axl Rose.
Yeah.
Like it was trying too hard.
Well, that and those first two albums, I mean, he had a killer scream.
Awesome.
I mean,
and then
really
even
good.
his second album, when he was like half screaming, half singing, his singing voice was really good.
Right. But then all of a
Well,
sudden...
it was different. It wasn't, it was still like kind of raw and shit, but then after that, City of Evil came out, and then it was just he was trying too hard to sound like and be Axl Rose.
Right. I agree. It was a weird time, at least for my taste, because I think that was probably the most like closed off and diverse, like if that makes any sense. That's how closed off and diverse that I was at my extreme. Because at that time it was weird. I was trying to kind of branch out and listen to other stuff, but at the same time I was still kind of closed in on progressive music, and I just burnt myself out on it back then. That's all I would listen to is progressive music, and it got to the point where I'm like, I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I remember listening to music with you, and you still kind of do it a little bit, and every fucking thing we listen to, you're like, well, I mean, it's a little bit progressive, but I'm like, why does everything have to be progressive?
Right,
like,
right.
Everything.
Right.
You try to be like, oh, I can hear progressive elements. Okay,
right.
Cool. That's not what they are.
Well,
and you don't do that so much anymore, but
it's kind of like when you're first getting into something or whatever,
you try to compare it to things that you
right.
know, or things that you've heard, or what other people are listening to,
and it's like you're kind of trying to like justify it to some level with some of the other stuff you're listening to, which it was unfair to do that back then, because a lot of the stuff that was popular and coming out at the time, they weren't trying to be progressive or trying to be ridiculous like that. And even progressive music wasn't trying to be progressive anymore at that point. I think they were just trying to kind of reel it back and become hard rock and heavy metal.
And try to get some kind of traction.
Right. And then just over time it got to the point where I heard enough of it. It got to the it was a welcome relief to start listening to like softer and, for lack of a better way to put it, less complex music.
I was gonna say, we were saying earlier that his like clean singing voice isn't great. This song's pretty good. His voice is pretty good on this one. It reminds me a little bit of another band I can't fucking stand, but it reminds me a little bit of like A Day to Remember, in like that era of that kind of like, I don't know if you call it metalcore or pop metal. I don't know what the fuck you call it. Happy hardcore, whatever you want to call it. But it reminds me a little bit of that, where like that era when every fucking band was trying to sound like A Day to Remember.
And it's cool with that style too, because at that time I didn't like it, but I've come to appreciate it, where it's a little bit more subdued, kind of mumbly, kind of not really defined, I guess is a good way to put it. Like it's not like he's going out there trying to be an opera singer during that section, but he's also not like mumble rapping his way through it. So Josh
Middleton at this point in my life, and he's my guy right now. And I'm not saying that they've become my favorite band, just at this moment in time they are. Trivium for now is still my absolute favorite band.
Right.
But I'm desperately waiting for their newest album, if they're working on one, to come out.
Right.
Because that's been a while too. Their last one came out in 2021.
Man, you don't realize it either.
But they came out with two albums back to back. So
I used to be a huge Rush fanboy, and that's all I lived and breathed for. Anymore, not so much. I mean, I'm just like, I'll listen to them, and I'm dead honest about that. I'll listen to them, but I just don't get the same feeling from it as I used to. So, I mean, for you to say that, it's interesting to me, at least, because I'm sitting here going, I don't know if I can truly say I have a favorite band. So bluesy.
Oh, God, dude. That wah and the fucking delay that he has. Oh, God, his tone is so good.
It is very good. He does it a lot, I noticed. There's a technique he does. It's very similar to what I do in some cases, where he'll like he'll pre-bend a note and then he'll let it go and then bend it back. Yeah. So it's like and it was kind of cool to hear that like somebody else does that. You know what I mean? So
yeah, listen to their other stuff too, because like I said, similar to Trivium, all their albums sound different for the most part. I mean, they sound similar. Like, you know, it's like, okay, they have a sound, you know,
Right.
but like their album before this sounds kind of similar to this, but then everything before that is completely different.
Right. Yeah, because I was saying that. I mean, it's like their other album that I'm familiar with is their first one, and it's super thrash. This one's not anywhere in the same ballpark as that.
I mean, it's still good. You know, it's really good. You can definitely hear their thrash roots on their early stuff.
But yeah, for me, that's great because, I mean, that's really, I mean, like I said, I can't really pick a favorite band, but favorite style, yeah. I mean, old school thrash, I would love it. Like that's my shit. And then when I heard their first album, it's pretty much that with screams. So it was like, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, especially well, technically the second song on their first album. Oh my god, dude! And the breakdown in that's up
brutal.
there. That's up there with Domination for me.
Oh yeah. No, I mean that's a very well done album. For a debut yet, it was very good. But like you said, he's a very. I don't know how much of a tone snob he is, but you said he is a tone snob.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a squirrel chaser for sure.
I just like how he does the melody. Like when he does put the melody in, it's not overdone. He doesn't do it throughout the entire song. In some cases, it's very like here and there. And what he does though, it works real good with what's going on underneath. Like this song in particular, I would probably say it's probably the best example of that. It makes sense, you know.
Yeah, he's up there for me now with like all my other influences like Matt Eafy and I don't know. I don't even know if I'd consider Sinister Gates an influence anymore. Like he influenced me early on, but
yeah, I mean, there's always that one guy who kind of really gives you that drive to pick the instrument up and just work as hard as you can at it. And correct me if I'm wrong, that was Sinister Gates for you.
Well, in the early days when I first started playing guitar, it was James Hetfield.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what I'm talking about with his screams. Like,
Yep.
He should have been the new Linkin Park singer.
Oh yeah.
Just kidding. But yeah, Metallica, they were the first ones. Hetfield and probably, I guess, Hammett.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think he really influenced my lead playing at all, but and then yeah, not long after that it was when I found Sevenfold, and then, you know, Sinister Gaze was my guy for years.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know, I got bored because he just keeps doing the same shit, and then I don't know, and then their newest album came out, and I'm just
over it.
I'm just not into it.
With them, I think I was a little disappointed when Hail to the King came out. Like it was decent. It's just it was a clear rip-off album.
Yeah, I loved that album when it came out, but I mean, that was probably, to me, I don't know, the stage was okay, but that was probably their last Avenged Sevenfold sounding album.
Yeah, I would say so.
But yeah, and then after that, I just kind of, that's when I realized, like, I need to listen to more different things.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything always comes full circle at some point, but I ended up just circling back to metalcore, and
yep.
But that was when I realized that there's so much more in that genre, you know, and there's stuff that sounds different in that genre too. Yeah, and then, you know, Bullet, and then it wasn't even until like way later on, like the last maybe 5 or 6, 7 years, that I found like I didn't find Killswitch then, but like that was when I really, really started to listen to them. Like, these guys don't sound anything like all the other, you know, I mean, like they kind of defined metalcore back then.
Oh yeah.
Them and As I Lay Dying, and which that's another whole thing. Everybody quit like within the last 2 weeks. The whole band left. It was so the only person left is Tim Lambesis, and he hasn't made any statements about it yet. So everybody in the band quit, including their tour manager and a bunch of like behind the scenes people. But everybody's been pretty vague about it. They're not saying. I'm sure it's some kind of controlling factor with Tim Lambesis, because that was the same reason that they all split before. He's an awesome musician and songwriter. I think he writes pretty much everything in that band, but he's a dick about it seems like. But I'm like, you know what? As far as personality goes with that band, I don't really give a shit, because I don't. You know, their music was so good.
Right.
And like, I don't have any plans of meeting these fucking people.
Well, no.
You know what I mean? Like, much less hang out with them. Like,
I mean, like my big thing on that though is like, you know, if it's gonna sacrifice or affect them making music,
Yeah.
you know, and putting out stuff that people can listen to, that's where I was going with that.
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
you know, if you're just gonna be an asshole and go in there and alienate your band, you're gonna alienate your fans too.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, and then they had a European tour scheduled that they had to cancel. So anyway, kind of got off subject, but yeah, and then more recently, I've, you know, like Trivium and these guys, and then from there made me find like the 90s metal shit
yeah.
more appealing, like I don't know, like Machine Head and
Yeah.
Pantera and
90s metal.
what's the fuck, not Feared, but what's the other one, the Haunted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
90s metal too. I mean, it was very under the radar for so long, and they'll sit there and blame grunge and the 90s pop scene and all that kind of stuff for why heavy metal wasn't popular at the time, and it's like, no, it's just because it's heavy metal and it never was in the same league as some other genres. But yeah, I mean, 90s metal, it's kind of cool to go back to and listen to it and hear. It was kind of like the awkward teen years of heavy metal music.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of experimentation, a lot of difference.
But they had a huge influence on metal in their own right too.
Right.
You know, how many metal bands nowadays always cite Pantera and Machine Head and
Right.
mostly all of them.
Oh yeah. Well, and to be honest, they're great influences to have.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only take like a Metallica or a Megadeth or anything, and you can only take that sound so far. You know, because
I mean, even
that was
listening
in
to
its
Metallica,
infancy.
they can only take that sound so far.
right.
It seems like metal bands are kind of getting away from being tight.
Right.
Because like even Trivium, their last album, it was really good and everything, but it wasn't. They've always kind of been like not
Like perfectly right on the metronome click.
They're on a metronome, but they're just not super tight and thin sounding. They just have a huge sound. And I really hope that's the direction metal's going, because I'm getting really tired of like, I don't know, like these new metalcore bands or whatever you want to call them, like the stuff that Ashley listens to for the most part. I don't hate them, but I'm just, that sound is so generic now.
And again, I mean, there's a time and a place for it. I mean, because to me it is impressive to hear a band be that tight and that accurate, especially if you have multiple members in the band, you know, 4+, I would say. I think that's pretty impressive. But again, I mean, if I go and see a concert or anything and I hear every single band playing super tight, right on with one another and everything, it is going to get cold and stale after a while. I like to hear that looseness every now and again too.
I mean, that's the point of metal, you know, it's the point of rock and roll, is to be not perfect.
Right.
And I'm also sick of all these new metalcore bands. I like that how that's becoming a new genre, kind of like
new
metal,
metalcore.
but it's new metalcore.
That's fucked
where
up.
they have like the synths and like it's pop music for the most part. It was supposed to be a mix between like thrash metal and punk rock.
Right.
And they're going completely in their opposite direction. I mean, everybody at some point they're going to start doing with it. Even Metallica.
Oh yeah.
You know, their last 3 albums, I think because Saint Anger was such a flop, they had to do something else. And then and then Death Magnetic came out, sounded a lot more like their old shit.
I mean, everybody's going to sit here and point the finger at Load and Reload with that band, but
they weren't that bad.
I was going to say, I don't think they're bad. I mean, I don't think they're good, but...
Okay, maybe at the time they were bad, but Saint Anger hadn't come out yet.
Right.
So,
that pretty much...
I was like, this is their bad album. Load and Reload aren't so bad anymore.
Right. The double barrel shotgun for that band was Saint Anger and Lulu.
Yeah.
When those two came out, it was like... I think they lost a lot of credibility.
That wasn't even a Metallica album, Lulu.
Right. It was more them and Lou Reed.
Death Magnetic was awesome.
Yeah, it was a good return to form for them.
Hardwired was pretty good. I grew kind of tired of that pretty quickly. And then their newest album, 72 Seasons, I haven't listened to it a whole lot, but I do like it. It's a lot more classic metal sounding. Like their one big single sounded to me a lot like Motorhead.
Oh, was it Lux Eterna or something like that?
Lux Eterna, yeah. I don't know. This is currently my favorite band at the moment. I mean, still not better than Trivium to me, but they're what I'm listening to the most right now.
I mean, really, it's not too far off the beaten path from Trivium. So, I mean, if there's fans of Trivium out there, I mean, I would highly recommend listening to these guys.
Probably most of them are Sylosis fans too. But Ashley even said that. She's like, is this Trivium? I'm like, no, it isn't Trivium. It sounds just like them.
The beginning and the end of the video.
Yeah. That will be on my gravestone. Cool. I don't know what else is new. We got 29 subscribers on YouTube now. I think we got 3 over the last week.
Hell yeah.
So keep them coming. It would be cool to get to 50 by the end of the year. I doubt that's going to happen because we've been doing this for almost a year now.
Yeah, because we started
February.
the channel, I was going to say late February, early March.
Yeah.
So
we're doing it just because it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we don't have enough. It's not paying the bills or anything.
No.
We're not making any money off of these because most of them are copyright claimed anyway.
Right. And Russia really doesn't like progressive music.
Russia doesn't like us at all. We have had 2 that they won't even play it. But cool. Well, thanks for watching. Get us some subscribers. At least one more by the end of the year.
One more.
Let's hit 30. It's funny to say that other people are trying to hit 3 million.
Yeah, we're just happy with in the double
29.
digits.
So cool. Thanks for watching. Well, I'm scratching the ear, and yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Hey, have a good week, guys.